Marvel Rivals has a lot of backstory for each character, which includes characters that will likely join in the future and storylines that may be explored in later seasons. There is so much that it is a very significant amount of reading, so I am here to catch you up on the story while you can keep playing the game. Welcome to another episode of our Marvel Rivals lore series, where this time we learn how Cloak and Dagger became rivals. And we are covering Cloak and Dagger on this episode because it was suggested by Zach Baker down in the YouTube comments. If you would like to suggest who we cover next, simply leave a comment on this video, or you can join our Discord server, link is in the description. And with that, welcome to Chapter 1, A Brief Farewell. The story begins where all stories should, the beginning. And we are in New York City, where Tyrone Johnson and Tandy Bowen, known as Cloak and Dagger, are protecting the city from vampires due to Dracula's curse. And in the midst of a fight, Cloak opens his cape, trapping 3 vampires in the void. And right here it's noted that it's very rare that something escapes from the void once it is being brought into it. Now, one person that wasn't too happy about what just happened was Dagger, who says Cloak let them off easy because vampires thrive in the darkness and Cloak just sent them, well, into the void. So then Cloak responds by saying if Dagger were here, she could have finished them off. But tonight is his night. Now, you may be wondering, why are they separated? Why are they not fighting together? They are Cloak and Dagger. Well, we're about to find out because we are now headed to a flashback to shortly before Dracula took over the city. And here in this flashback, Cloak and Dagger are indeed united, fighting some petty criminals when a light appears in the sky. Oh my gosh, what is that? Now, if I see something in the sky, I'm sitting there like the President of the United States looking at the sun. What is that? But Dagger, she's smart. She's got that brain on her. She's got that big brain on her. And she immediately jumps into Cloak's portal. The two escape right when danger was arriving, right? Now, Cloak exits the portal soon after. He's safe, but Dagger didn't follow. Was she stuck in the void? Was she stuck in the dark force dimension? Well, the answer is no, because immediately when those questions emerged, Cloak was able to hear Dagger's voice in his head. So, Cloak is able to hear Dagger, but she's not physically there with him. At this point, he does what any of us would do. We run straight home and we start crying. I'm kidding, of course. But he opened up a portal and he went back in. However, this time, a beam of light force shot out of his body. Now, I don't know if any of you have had a burst of light shoot out of you, but it's pretty painful, so Cloak begins to scream. However, back in their home dimension, Dagger was standing right where Cloak was, except Cloak was no longer there. They got hit with the Uno reverse. Now it's Dagger instead of Cloak in the physical realm. Now the issue here is wherever Dagger was and where Cloak is right now is not the same place that the vampires were just sent to. Because if it was, it's super easy. Barely an inconvenience. Cloak could just open up a portal, come back into the physical realm, and enter this dimension once again. So she was, and he is, somewhere else. Now, Dagger, of course, didn't know what to make of this. She couldn't make heads or tails of it. She's like, is that a foot? Is that a paw? I don't know what this is. So she needs some help. She's looking for help, and that help comes in the form of none other than Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards. Now, once Reed learns about what happened to him, Reed looks Dagger right in her eyes, and he says, let me lay it down to you like this. The beam of light that you guys saw in the sky was due to the time stream entanglement, which is a disruption in the fabric of both space and time. And then he also says that multiple realities have begun to merge, creating alternate realities in and of themselves. So after Reed explains that, we then learn that it is likely that since Cloak and Dagger were traveling dimensions when the time stream entanglement happened, they themselves were now entangled. So, at any given moment, only one of them could physically exist. However, the other's consciousness still exists within the one currently physically present, right? So if it's Cloak that's physically present, he could still hear Dagger's thoughts, and then the inverse as well. Now, Reed Richards attempts to find a solution, of course, but he had to take a break. He wasn't able to crack that nut, right? So he told them to basically, for the time being, you have to make do with what you got, right? You got to play with the cards that you've been dealt. Now, a little bit of a time jump. Over time, they're protecting the city, right? They're fighting vampires. And originally, as you could probably guess, Cloak was the one that's more brutal towards the vampires, while Dagger was more sympathetic. You know, you got the darkness, you got the light. And Dagger is sympathetic towards these vampires because at the end of the day, really all they were innocent people that have been infected by the vampires. However, as time went on, their roles began to reverse. Dagger started to be more aggressive while Cloak was a little bit more sympathetic. Now this next point is very interesting, okay? Pay attention. It is mentioned that Reed Richards and Tony Stark are on opposite ends of dealing with the vampires. It goes even further with explaining that Tony Stark and Moon Knight have learned about another solution. So this is incredibly interesting because this feels like a direct follow-up to what we did in the Iron Man story we already covered. Now, this is intentional. I didn't read this story before I read the Iron Man one. We're just going around reading the stories. It's pretty crazy how it lined up like this. How we already know the story about Tony and Moon Knight and stuff. Just think about it for a second. Think about it. Think about it. Think about it for a second. Think about it. Think about it. I'm telling you, think about it. You gotta think, Mark. Think. If we covered this story first, we could have been spoiled that Moon Knight shows up in the Iron Man story. But because we read it in this way, we already know that information. I just want to point that out because that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I suspect stuff like that is going to happen a lot as we go through more and more of these stories, which I am completely here for. I love all this interconnectivity and stuff. I love it. Now, let's go back to the story. Cloak is getting more worried about Dagger's increasingly dark attitude. And he even tries to talk to her about it, but she says there's only time to fight. They don't have time for feelings, right? Facts don't care about your feelings. And neither does Dagger, apparently. So they're trying to figure this new dynamic out. And Reed Richards sends Cloak a message asking him to go to the Baxter building. And we also learn that the Baxter building has become one of the hubs, right? One of the mainstays during Dracula's curse. Now, hold on, let's take a pause. I just want to say, dude, man, brother, what if we get a Baxter building map? Dude, imagine fighting on the Baxter. Yo, hold on. Not even just that. Imagine if because, you know, the alternate realities and stuff, and they got the movie skins in here already. Imagine if we get that whole street in New York City. Imagine a map where we fight up the street and then you can look up and you see the Baxter building. Brother, dude, the limitations on this game do not exist. It's limitless. It is limitless on the stuff they could do here. I'm getting excited. All right, so Baxter building right here, it's canon to this universe or this multiverse, whatever we're talking about, right? Super exciting. All right, let's continue. So Cloak teleports to the Baxter building, but doing so, during the process of the teleportation, Dagger takes over a spot. She is now the physical presence. And showing up to the Baxter building, Dagger came at Reed Richards hot, right? It's like, hey, yo, we could be out there fighting the vampires right now, but we're up here talking to you. What is it? And Reed Richards, you know, he keeps us cool, right? That's why they call him the Iceman. He says, let me lay it down to you like this. Again, it'd be better to have two of you protecting the city. And upon hearing this, Dagger gets her hopes up. She's like, is this a solution? Or are we going to finally be able to separate ourselves? So Reed explains that he and Tony have been working on the time stream reintegration device, TRD for short, and Dagger asks if it can be used to undo the entanglement between she and Cloak. Reed responds by saying, in theory, and then he grabs a small device which he explains is a portable TRD. Now, Cloak, his consciousness is in Dagger and he doesn't want to risk the experiment, right? They're already in a bad situation. This is not a proven solution to their problem. He doesn't want to do it. However, upon hearing this, Dagger immediately agrees. And Reed is like, right on. Of course, he doesn't really, I don't even think at this point he knows that Dagger can hear Cloak. I think they are just, to Reed Richards, I think they are literally just swapping between physical forms and there's no connection beyond that. But here's the thing, right? We're going to step back from the story a little bit. We're going to have a little bit of speculation. Reed Richards also isn't the most nice guy. He's not the most, we've already seen it in these stories alone here in the series, where he's very much about experimentation and he's willing to take the risk. So I'm torn. Either, let me tell you the two sides, the duality that exists within me, right? The cloak and dagger within me. Part of me thinks, yeah, Reed, maybe it was just never mentioned to him that they can hear each other when the other one isn't physically there, right? So when he's like, hey, do you guys want to do it? And then Dagger is the only one there. He doesn't know that Cloak knows about this situation, so he doesn't ask whether or not Cloak wants to do it as well. He just hears one answer, so he's like, let's do it. On the other part, though, Reed, like I just mentioned, not the nicest guy, always about experimentation, willing to take the risk. Yo, maybe Reed Richards just simply doesn't care. Maybe he just wants the consent of the current physical body, and he's like, that's enough for me, dog. Either way, dog, Cloak is getting he's getting the bad cards. If we're going to continue with that analogy, he's getting dealt with shitty cards. It's like, damn, dude, he and Dagger got dealt a bad deck of cards, and then later on, Dagger popped out and said, you know what, I got my own deck of cards. Here you go, Cloak. And then the whole deck is bad. Not even just a couple cards. The entire deck is bad. Anyway, Dagger immediately agrees to it. Reed is like, let's go. Now get ready. Now I'm talking to you because we are about to have some name drops. So Reed tells Dagger that she should stay still during this and be as quiet as possible. Why be quiet, you may ask? It's because Franklin and Valeria are sleeping. That's right. The children of Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman have been mentioned. And do I even have to say it? Do I even have to say it? I'll say it. Are they going to be joining the game at some point? Oh man, that's exciting. I hope they do. Man, they're cooking up, dude, the amount of stories and characters they could bring into this game. The potential for this game, I really do hope this game does everything right. Or like, not everything right, because that's subjective, but just like keeps going and is profitable and people enjoy it and the enthusiasm stays high. Because the amount of things they can do with this game is just incredible. Like they're already planting the seeds. They have not even included the Fantastic Four in the game yet, and we're already planting the seeds to be able to play as their children, along with whatever storyline they could cook up with that. Man, it's exciting. I'm loving this. I am loving this. I'm loving playing the game, and I'm also loving all this lore. This is great. I love it. I hope you're enjoying it as well. All right, so back to the story. Reed starts the device, and of course it's painful, but it was a success. Cloak and Dagger, once again, standing side by side in the same physical realm. Dagger, very excited by this, but Cloak, he's the opposite, and that's for two reasons. One, just moments ago, Cloak did not even want to do this test. And Dagger just immediately disregarded that. And two, Cloak is scared now because Dagger's new attitude can no longer be in check, because if they're sharing the same physical presence, Dagger is sort of limited in what she can do, right? But now that's no longer the case. So Cloak is not very excited right now. So Dagger, very excited. Cloak, very weary, not very excited. Reed Richards, though, is very confused. The device worked, but it didn't entirely solve the problem, because he explains if Cloak and Dagger were to do the same thing they did when they first became entangled, it's likely it will happen again. And that's a big problem, because if you remember earlier in the story, what were they doing when this time stream entanglement began? They were teleporting. Now Dagger is completely fine with this, because all this means is that they don't teleport anymore. Cloak, though, is like, dude, teleporting is like what I do. It's my thing. And Dagger responds very bluntly. She's like, yo, you're not gonna do that anymore, and you better figure something out. It's that simple. Boom, roasted, forehead. Do something else. She does not care. Now, after this bickering, or not really bickering, it's really just Dagger saying, shut up. Reed Richards then says that Ben has reported vampires in Battery Park. So we got a Ben Grimm mention. They haven't, so far in this series of the stories we've read, they haven't said his last name. I'm just saying his last name, because it's like, what other Ben is he talking about? But they just mentioned Ben. I'm assuming it's the Thing, but also it'd be pretty crazy if they misdirect it and it's somebody else. But we got vampires in Battery Park, right? Cloak almost immediately, without hesitation, teleports over there. But then he remembers what was just said, the ramifications, what's at stake, what's on the line. And also, Dagger is staring daggers at Cloak and is like, you're not about to teleport. What are you doing? So what do? They borrow a Fantastic car instead. So they drive up there, they see a ferry in the ocean, and then they also see people huddled together on the ferry surrounded by vampires. Now Cloak believes it's a trap, while Dagger is fast to go to the fight. He's like, she doesn't care what Cloak thinks of it. Cloak is like, I think this is a trap. She says, I don't care. I'm gonna go save those people. So Dagger goes in by herself and is fighting, and she's doing well, but then slowly over time, it's not looking good. She begins losing. There's just too many vampires. Now this part right here, I'm gonna introduce some direct quotes, right? Just follow along with me as we sort of act this out. I'm not the best actor, but I'm gonna try a little bit because this is a good interaction they have right during this fight. So Cloak is done watching Dagger she's just getting the brakes beat off of her by these vampires. So then Cloak opens his cape and then Dagger yells, "You can't! Remember what Reed said." "I don't care what Reed said. All I care about is you." And then Dagger says, "Well, if you teleport, you're gonna lose me. And if I do nothing, I lose you too." Boom! There we go. Cloak teleports into the ferry, saves Dagger moments before being bit by vampires. Where do they teleport? They teleport back to the Baxter building along with the saved civilians from the ferry. Now Dagger could not be seen, but is heard by Cloak. She's not happy with the decision that Cloak just made, but she's also thankful that Cloak saved her at the same time, right? Cloak is like, hey, I know the darkness is taking a hold of you though, but you don't have to worry, I'm here for you. You're not gonna get too far into the darkness, just like you bring me into the light. That's what makes us a good team. And then Dagger is like, we're more than that. And that is like the first time she's talked like that to Cloak in a very long time. Again, she's had this dark attitude. The darkness has taken over for the most part, but she's starting to resemble a little bit what she was before. So then Cloak teleports out of the Baxter building back into the night to carry on the fight against the vampires. And that, my rivals, is the end of chapter 1. And I'll be honest, we're only 4 episodes in, but already I think this is my favorite so far. I think it's my favorite. The Wolverine one was good. I like the world building in the Wolverine one. The Iron Man one, I like how he and Mr. Fantastic basically just went toe-to-toe on their ideals and their morals and what they want to do with solving this issue. I like that. I like all these stories so far. The Spider-Man one was great with Blade and Johnny Storm. They've all been great. I think this one has been my favorite. I like the dynamic between Cloak and Dagger. I like the inclusion of Mr. Fantastic here. I think it was very well done. I like this story a lot. I like it a lot. We have other chapters with Cloak and Dagger too. We don't even know how they got into the game either. We're just setting the foundation here. The fantastic foundation, some would say. And man, here in the story, we got the Baxter building. We got Franklin and Valeria Richards mentioned. We got Ben Grimm mentioned again. Go in the comments, suggest who you want us to cover in the next episode. Or you could join our Discord. There's also a channel where you could do that over there as well. Discord link down in the description. Please leave a like on the video if you liked it. It gets the video out to more people. Also, you know what? Leave a comment. What do you think of the game so far? We're all about the story here on this series, but what are you thinking about the game? What characters do you main as? Do you play quick play? Do you play Conquest? Me personally, I love Conquest. I haven't gotten tired of Conquest yet. It's just, it makes you feel like a superhero, man. And everybody's just fighting. It's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying that a lot. So let me know. Thank you so much for watching. And you got to remember, even though I am very thankful to you for watching, you and I, we are rivals till the end. And no matter how many cloaks and daggers you may throw at me, I will never forget that.